This is Ryan Haines on behalf of Authority Media, here with Finbarr Moynihan, Vice President of Corporate Marketing at MediaTek.
Hey Ryan, good to be here.
Yep. Thank you for taking time to come by. So, I think most of what we want to talk about is the Dimensity 9200.
Exciting stuff.
Since it's still brand new, and we're just kind of curious what MediaTek's global goals are, and whether we think we'll see a lot more adoption than the 92 or the 9000 series.
Great. Yeah, so it's an exciting time for us, right? We launched the 9200 a couple of weeks ago, like back in November. We've seen already some devices launched. It's our second year now of the flagship, as you mentioned. So we had the Dimensity 9000 a year and a half ago, a year and a bit ago, Dimensity 9200. So I think it's a really good start for us in the flagship tier, because this is new for MediaTek, relatively new, moving into the flagship tier. So we've been kind of working our way up, right? And we now have the 8000 series for what we call the premium tier. That's been phenomenally successful for us over the last year. We had a great start with the 9000, multiple models launched, Vivo, Oppo, Redmi, Asus, Honor launches. Most of the volume, I would say, in the first year was in China, to be fair. And I think that's understandable, because I think that's like the first step for many of those customers using MediaTek in the flagship tier. But now we've launched the 9200. I think we've proven to the world, to the customers, that we really can deliver solutions that check all the boxes for that like flagship tier. And what's really exciting is our first customer, Vivo, has already launched. So I have here like the Vivo X80 Pro, which is the first model launched with the 9200. It's off to a flying start in China, so it's very exciting.
We love a red phone.
I know. It's
anything
cool.
That's not another black rectangle.
Isn't it cool?
Yes. So, with, like you said, a lot of the first ones coming to China, what lessons have you kind of learned from 9000 to 9200?
Yep. I think our messaging for the 9200 family, and I think it's resonating a lot with the customers, the OEMs, but also I think with the consumers, is incredible performance, intelligent power, right? And what we're trying to convey in that sort of soundbite snapshot is, of course, at flagship level performance, the latest technology, the latest process technology, the latest ARM cores, the latest ARMS graphics, modem capability. You have to check all those boxes. But you can't do it in such a way that just blows up the power budget and makes the phone usable. So we're always trying to balance performance and power. And I think we achieved that to some degree with the 9000. I think we've enhanced that a lot with the 9200, of really kind of making sure that we're delivering high performance, but sustained high performance in a real user environment, in a real device, like the X90. And I think we've proven that now with 2 generations. And I think we hear that feedback from the customers as well, that yes, you really are delivering on that promise.
Okay. So, and another thing, again, kind of sticking with the same theme, is what exactly are you going to work on to draw the brands who are very committed to other flagship chips over to the Dimensity side?
Yeah. Well, we've already seen fairly broad adoption, as I mentioned. So, not only Vivo, Oppo, but we're seeing, I think, this year, what you'll start to see in 2023 is new launches of new 9000, Dimensity 9000 products.
Okay.
So, for example, Oppo just announced a Fold device that's based on our 9000 Plus. But you'll see that continue, so people continuing to use last year's flagship for new models, and then new models coming in, like the Vivo X90 with the 9200. So you'll see both of those going in parallel. I think the other thing you'll see this year is more global launches, or more global availability. We're kind of going to see more in Europe, more in Southeast Asia, more in India, more in different markets, as I think our customers have now got comfortable with MediaTek in the flagship tier. We've seen 2 generations, we've delivered on the promise. I think they're comfortable now starting to expand out of China with those models as well. So we'll see, I think, more global adoption this year.
Okay, so like the brands that have strong American presences, so like the Motorola's and like Samsung, a similar kind of thread?
The US market's always been a little different, right? As we all know, right? Yeah. It's kind of a quirky, different market, because it's just so concentrated with a few brands at the high end, right? So I think it's going to take a little longer in the US market, I think, to break through. We may see some, but I think it's going to be very limited. we have enabled the latest technologies in the Dimensity 9200, so it has millimeter wave support, which of course is important for the US market. So we feel like we've delivered a platform now that has all of the capabilities if somebody wanted to bring it to the US market. So there's no technical barrier, let's say, anymore. It's more a case of the right OEM, the right device, the right opportunity, the right carrier relationship. It may take a little longer.
Okay. And actually, with mentioning millimeter wave, we did see it debut on the Moto Edge 2022 with the 1050.
Yep.
So should we probably expect more devices to launch stateside with that kind of a level of chipset?
Probably.
Okay.
Probably. I mean, if you look at MediaTek in the US market, our market share has been growing, quarter on quarter on quarter.
Yeah.
Some of the analysts have now MediaTek powering more Android phones in the US market than any other chipset vendor, which I think is a statistic that will astound some users. But we would also acknowledge that most of the volume today is in the entry prepaid segments of the market, which is, a fairly sizable part of the market in the US and an important part of the market. But our objectives in the US are more about moving up tier, and like the Moto Edge device that you mentioned with millimeter wave, kind of at the $500 price point, that's a relatively new level for MediaTek's devices in the US market. So I think we'll see more progress there. Particularly with some of the economic challenges ahead, I think maybe some of the flagship device pricing may get to be challenging for consumers, and there's a possibility that sort of those mid-range phones could become more popular in 23, 24, let's say, if the economy still continues to have like high inflation and some of those challenges. But I think that's where you'll probably see more focus.
Okay. MediaTek has done a great job of transitioning to 5G,
Yep.
Certainly smoother than transitioning to 4G.
Thank you.
So how do you see, it's obviously early days, but as we move towards 5G advanced, 6G, applying some of those lessons,
going forward?
Yes.
Yeah. No, it's a great question, Ryan. I think, yes, we made some very deliberate decisions as a company, driven by our management to really close the technology gap with 5G. I mean, the history is kind of written now, but, we obviously decided strategically to focus on sub-6 only for the first wave of 5G. It's still the right decision for MediaTek, given where our market was, and you saw the success and, how the business scale, the market share changed because of that. Then, of course, we knew that millimeter wave is important technology and we needed to develop that, so we've also landed that. So at this point, we sort of check all the boxes for all of the necessary features for 5G. And of course, we are working on the next generations as well, right? So we're very active in the standardization activity now, so 3GPP. We've already published a white paper on our vision for 6G, so that's out there on the website if anybody wants to go and check it out. It's a lot of great information on how we see the transition from 5G to 6G and some of the differences and changes and technologies that will be necessary to develop. We're also very active in satellite communications, non-terrestrial networks, right? So, people may have seen like that Bullet Motorola announcement, I believe yesterday or the day before. I mean, they're using MediaTek technology for the satellite communication link in that phone. And satellite communications is just in its infancy, but I think it's going to be an important aspect of 6G as it builds out, more with the standard-based approach. And we're also very active in what's called the NR-NTN, which is let's say the 3GPP standardized satellite communication technology that will be appearing in, future modem generations. So I think we're laying a lot of the technology groundwork. We feel very confident that, now that we've caught up and landed 5G, we're going to stay where we are.
Okay. And actually kind of with that laying the groundwork, we've seen other makers move to custom CPUs, custom GPUs. Is, given MediaTek's relationship with ARM, is that something you're moving towards?
No, at this point, like if you look at our flagships, we're using standard ARM IP. So the Dimensity 9200 has the latest Cortex X3 core. We're using the top of the line Mali, Immortalis graphics IP. We have a very close relationship with ARM.
Okay.
I mean, I think on the graphics side, I think we are the company that's driving the roadmap of devices that are using the bleeding edge of the ARM graphics IP. Of course, the CPUs are a bit more common. So we work very closely with them. We adopt the standard IP from ARM. Of course, we also build what we would call our own secret sauce into this,
Yes.
right? So, we have a very capable team that does the CPU implementation, the GPU implementation, to balance that power and performance that I was talking about. That's important. We also look at, say, if we talk about the GPU, the most important use case is, of course, gaming, and mobile gaming is huge, right? The graphics core is clearly an important part of the solution, but you really have to look at it more from a system perspective. So, for example, we brand a group of technologies that we call Hyper Engine, and that's just the name for a suite of media technologies that go around the platform. Everything from latency reduction, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, display refresh rates, how the display is managed, to enhance the gaming experience for the user. So we can also add value with some of those kind of technologies and capabilities. But that's our strategy in how we're developing the high-end products today.
You kind of make it feel a little bit custom without having to...
Kind of, yeah. And it's like, it's about, it's not just about the GPU core, which of course is important,
Right.
and it's a big part of the silicon area, and it's a key component, but it's not the only thing that delivers the gaming experience for the consumer.
Obviously with 5G adoption, we're still seeing devices ship with the Helio,
Sure.
the very entry level
Yeah.
4G limited chips. What does the future look like for them? If 5G hits every device,
Yeah.
they might not have the same.
Yep. I think we're going to see 4G and Helio around for a long time. Our view of the market right now is that last year, 2022, a little less than 50% of the phones shipped were 5G. Our view for this year, 2023, is that going to increase to the mid-50s. So let's say 55% plus or minus a few percentage points. So I think clearly the rate of transition from 4G to 5G is continuing to grow, but maybe at a slightly slower pace as we move now into mid-tier and entry devices. I mean, the reality today is that there's still significant cost differences between a 4G phone and a 5G
Yeah.
phone, just given the level of technology that's going into the 5G devices. So for sure the 4G market is getting smaller, but it's still roughly half the overall market today in terms of the quantity. So still a very important market for us in terms of volume and quantity. Last year we actually launched a new 4G platform, the Helio G99. We brought that into more advanced technology, so 6 nanometer technology. That's going to have advantages in power, in performance, but also I think helped alleviate some of the supply challenges that the semiconductor industry went through in 21, 22. So we have a whole portfolio from very entry to high-end 4G. I think we'll be shipping those for many years to come. Certain markets are going to continue to demand that. Africa, LATAM, a little bit India, maybe Southeast Asia. And again, some of those markets like India are transitioning to 5G, but it'll happen over the course of a couple of years, I believe.
Right. Is there anything else you want to tell us about MediaTek? Anything else exciting you want to share that you're allowed to share?
Well, we're starting a new year. Obviously, we've had our big announcements. So we announced the flagship, the 9200. We obviously have also announced the new generation of the 8200 for the premium devices. So I think the high end of our portfolio is kind of set for now. But you'll see more coming from us pretty soon as we look at the larger portfolio of 5G and refreshing some of those tiers below that. As we go through this year, so we'll have more news on 5G as we go forward. But no, I think we're pretty excited about the lineup we have. We're pretty excited about the success we've had in flagship and the momentum we're seeing right now. So let's see how 2023 goes.
I want to thank you for spending time with us.
Thanks, Ryan. It's a pleasure.
From CES 2023, you can check out everything at AndroidAuthority.com.